little fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. I saw a piece on the hopes of some Californians to split up their state the other day on Fox, and it got me to thinking, what if we did that in Canada? What do I mean by that? Well, here's just one example, and I'm sure there are others out there. Ontario is completely overwhelmed by Toronto. If you live in the more rural part of the province, well, let's just say we don't see eye to eye with them at the very least. While the left in Toronto are talking about legalising drugs and more buses, less cars needed on the roads, our views are very different. For instance, many of us need 4x4s just to get around in the winter. Roads are ploughed to a point, but we don't have sidewalks, and power outages are not uncommon. We could care less about so-called climate change, rather than the damn fools who keep putting ethanol in our gas that screws up our engines. Out here, our electric cars would probably not even reach to the next town. No, there's no doubt that politicians in Ottawa and Toronto have no idea about what goes on in rural Ontario. We have commercials here talking about fibre optic internet and speeds that we can only dream about, while we can barely download our email on a good day. No, the politicians talk about redistributing wealth, codename equalisation, and taxing us for breathing. We are completely ignored. Now, I think the majority of citizens in Ontario would like nothing more than to see a complete separation from Toronto and the sprawling urban squalor that it brings. We think differently from the politicians in urban areas. Wood is essential for living, gasoline is a lifeline, cell phone service is optional, and food shopping can take all day. Sorry, we have different priorities in real Ontario, and maybe it's time to do something more than talk about it. In the meantime, listen to this piece from Fox News on California and New California, links on my site, and see if you think there are any similarities. Your thoughts?
Meanwhile, could the United States soon see a 51st state? Conservatives in California, so fed up with liberals running their state, they're pushing to break away and form a new California.
Well, it's been ungovernable for a long time. High taxes, education, you name it. We're rated really, I think, about 48th or 50th from a business climate.
Here to react is a guy that's kind of new to California, at least Los Angeles area. The Next Revolution host, Steve Hilton. He moved to California after serving as strategy director to former UK Prime Minister Cameron, and joins us live. So, Steve, this is a debate. Do you think this is a debate worth having?
Well, look, I tell you what's a debate worth having is the complete mess that the liberal coastal elite that run California have made of the state, not just in the last few years, but for the last few decades. I mean, just look at what's going on in California. It's got the highest poverty. There's a housing crisis. People can't afford anywhere to live.
The rash of illegals, the homeless situation.
The homeless situation, just near where I live in San Francisco. It's so embarrassing to be walking around a city with such wealth from the tech industry.
Sure.
And they can't run the basics of a city. So you can understand why people are fed up with it.
Will they call this Calexit or California exit, like Brexit that happened in the UK?
I feel like Cal-exit is the thing.
Cal-exit.
But that also could sound like some kind of weird new health drink. I have no idea.
Sounds delicious. Steve, if we could put up that graphic once again that shows the part of coastal California.
Yeah.
That's the part that predominantly votes super lefty.
Yes.
And it's the balance of the state, is the rural portion of the state. They want out.
Exactly, because their needs aren't being properly represented, because you've got the people on the coast who have a complete lock on the state legislature. You've had a Democratic governor for a long time, over a decade now. And so they feel like their issues aren't being addressed, whether that's, people who work in the farming community. And it's just so... it makes them so angry that they feel they don't have a proper voice. That's what lies behind this.
Here's what's changed. I used to live out there, and the stories we used to do is north and south. North and south, there was a difference. The thing that's changed is now it's coast, and I guess east of
everything else.
Everything else. That's exactly right.
It's the frustration New Yorkers feel because they have a New York City here. Upstate New York tends to be a little bit more conservative, and Long Island is divided. Yeah. So, but they're hostage to New York City.
But although I personally, I don't really agree with this. I don't like the idea that we kind of divide ourselves into smaller and smaller groups and just stick with the people that are like us. The real answer to this actually is to revive the California GOP, which has been sort of nowhere nowhere for years. It doesn't really have a strong presence. It doesn't make the populist argument that President Trump won on in 2016 to the people of California.
State to get you Nixon and Reagan.
Well, they're trying to do it by the book. They're trying to do it exactly the way West Virginia did it and got out of that.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, and email. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Moments tab.